I just filmed a get ready with me makeup, so make sure you check that out first. This video is going to be my Pacemaker story because I did do a blog post on it and a lot of people did view it and wanted to hear my story, and that means a lot to me. I've had to write everything down what I was going to talk about so I don't blabber on too much about things that are not relevant or not important to the story. So about I think 3 or 4 years ago, we went on a school trip to France. Had a great time. It wasn't like absolutely horrible. When I went on that France trip and I came back, I got a skin disease called HSP, I think it's called, and it was all over my legs. It basically looks like meningitis, but all the different spots look different from each other. Like some could be bumpy, some could be like completely flat, and some could be like really red and irritated. And if you rolled a glass over the top of it, they wouldn't go. So they passed me on from like doctor to doctor because they did not know what it was, because they all looked so different they couldn't diagnose it. So I was passed on to a lot of doctors, and then they finally diagnosed it with HSP, and they gave me some, I think it was like steroid cream to rub it off, and it went. We also found out that disease also attacks your organs, which we didn't know that until like last year. We found out that from that it must have damaged my heart muscles, but it didn't only affect my heart. I had like inflamed kidneys and bladder infections all the time, everywhere. It was horrible. From that France trip all the way up till now, I had so many problems with my organs. Everything was inflamed, nearly everything had an infection, and it was absolutely terrible. I was constantly on treatment, and I can't even think of a day where I wasn't in some form of pain. It was horrible. Also from that, I got diagnosed with arthritis, which is also in my legs, which they think it's from that HSP thing, but they don't really know. They just said I've got arthritis because I have hypermobility in my legs, and if you don't know what that is, it pretty much means that your legs can bend backwards, not forwards. Like when I'm standing up normally, my legs have to go a little bit backwards for me to feel comfortable standing up, which is really strange. And because of that, my two bones and like my knees are like rubbing together, and that's what's hurting. I think it's called reactive arthritis or something. Oh, they only hurt when they're bent. Like now I'm crossing my legs and it hurts, but I'm dedicated to this video. Also from that, I found out I had psoriasis, which is also a skin rash related to stress, and that was all in my neck and all in my hair, and I still kind of have it in my hair, but it's not as bad and noticeable, but it kind of does look like dandruff, which is really embarrassing. But I had it all on my neck, and it was really like, I thought it was a allergic reaction to a necklace, which I'm actually wearing now, so it obviously wasn't the necklace. Yeah, then I found out I had psoriasis, and again it took the doctor so long for me to treat me, so they gave me some really powerful like psoriasis cream, and it was gone. They gave me physiotherapy, and after one session I couldn't walk home. It was just so painful because he was constantly messing with the area that was hurting. It just wasn't for me, and he hurt me too much for me to go back. So I had one, and it definitely wasn't successful because it just made my pain worse rather than better. Also, after that, I've then discovered that I used to get really out of breath at the smallest of things. Walking up the stairs or walking down the stairs, I'd be panting and it would be horrible. And they thought I had asthma because they did like a breath test, and I was like a smidge showing that I could have asthma. And they put it on for like a couple of weeks, I think it was the brown inhaler. And again, they discovered it wasn't working. I was still getting out of breath, and I went to a wonderful doctor who completely changed my life from then onwards. He thought it could be my heart, not my lungs. My lungs are perfectly fine, apparently, because if the inhaler wasn't doing anything, it must not be my lungs or my airway or anything like that. And he started pressing on my chest, and he discovered that it was really hurting, and it was really sensitive when he pushed on my heart area. So first he thought that my muscle walls and my rib walls are like caving inwards and hurting my organs, which sounds really disgusting and weird. So he sent me for a cardiac MRI scan. And an MRI scan, you pretty much just go in a tunnel and it just scans you basically. And because it was a cardiac one, I had a big like metal plate on my chest, and they inject you with this like colour stuff so they can see it flowing around everywhere. And I had 2 injections of that because they couldn't really see from the first one, and the second one made me feel so sick. I felt like sick was just going to come up and I was going to choke on it because I was lying down. It's disgusting. I absolutely hate MRI scans, and I hope I will never have to have one ever again. Instead of discovering that my walls were like caving in, they discovered that I had scarring on my heart tissue, and that really, really scared me. But the doctors didn't really do anything about it. They just said I had scarring on my heart and they just left it like that. And then I went home, and that was about it. At school I was constantly getting dizzy, and at home I would just black out and pass out and dizzy and shaking. But we just looked past it. We just thought, oh, I haven't had enough to eat, or it was like a heat stroke or something. But it came to Friday the 13th of December of last year, which mum was like, oh, we're so unlucky, as if you went in hospital Friday the 13th. I'm like, I know, that's just me. I couldn't stop shaking, and I was with my boyfriend and he was getting worried, but I was just looking past it. I was just like, I'm just shaking, I don't know what's up with me. But then sitting down, I felt really dizzy and I felt like I was going to faint. And because I was sitting down, that's really weird. Normally I'd feel dizzy standing up, but I felt dizzy sitting down, and that's when I thought it was a problem. And then when I stood up, I just literally felt like I was going to faint. Like, my boyfriend Corey had to just carry me around the corridors so I wouldn't fall over. And the doctors told me, my cardiologist told me, that anytime I felt dizzy or faint, I should come straight in. So I told my teacher to ring the ambulance and to ring my mum because obviously she needs to be there, and she got there within like 20 minutes, and she works nowhere near my college, so I don't know how she did that. And the paramedics give me some paracetamol, I think, and they put a like heart monitor on me to see how my heart rate was doing. She says it was fine, so she gave me the paracetamol and suggested that I go home. But my mum was refusing to go home. My paramedic said, well, if you want to do that, we'll do that. And from that, I waited like 4 or 5 hours, me, my mum and Corey did. We waited like 4 hours just to be seen. I was hooked up to a monitor. And from that monitor, they discovered that my heart kept missing beats and stopping randomly and then kicking back in, which to me sounds so scary. Like, the slightest of movement, it would race up like I've just ran like a marathon or something, and I've only just stood up. I was in there for, I think, about a week, I think. I was in there for 10 days total, but after a week, they discovered that the bottom of my heart, it says it has 2 pumps, and the top of my heart was pumping fine, but my bottom pump would just randomly stop pumping, and that's what missed beat is. But then he also said that the top pump would stop. That's what their pause was. And while I was eating, my heart rate would increase completely just from eating. They were like scaring me because the room I was put in, I was constantly moving rooms, it was really weird, but the room I was put in, the last room that I stayed in, I could see the screen of everyone's like heart rate and stuff, and I constantly saw mine going off and missing beats, and I couldn't feel the missed beats, but I could feel the stops. On the 23rd of December, they finally give me a pacemaker. They didn't want to put a pacemaker in. They thought, oh, you're too young, you've got a whole life ahead of you, you don't need a pacemaker to stop you. But they had no choice. They just thought, well, if we let you go, then you're just going to faint again and black out, and your heart problems will continue. I'm glad that they did, and I'm glad that they decided there's nothing else we can do, we just might as well. And so they did. They took me down to theatre that day, and I had it put in. It was awake during the surgery. First of all, if you don't know what a pacemaker is, I didn't even thought to mention this, but it's like a little battery that gets slot into like a pouch in your skin, and either one wire or two wires, it just depends on the pacemaker, goes into your heart and it sends electrodes when it needs to kick in. I only have one that kicks in when it needs to. I don't have one that continuously works every day, but it just kicks in when it needs to. When my heart's having problems, it will just kick in. They had to inject so many drugs into me, it was ridiculous. I came in with like sticky patches all over me from the heart monitor. I had like 5 injections all up this arm because they couldn't find a vein before I went to surgery. They ended up doing it like here, which is really awkward. Normally it's like here or in normal places, but they had to put it at the bottom of my thumb because I was so scared, and I came out and I couldn't move this arm. It hurt so badly. I couldn't even describe the pain. It's horrible. And I stood up after having it done and I looked at it and I felt so faint. The doctor and the nurse just said that it's because I'm not used to it and so much has happened in like the past hour that it's just probably just got to me, and it did. It was horrible. I went home the same day on the 23rd of December and I spent my Christmas recovering, taking antibiotics and codeine, but by like the 30th my arm was fine again and I could move it and things. My scar's on this side. I don't really want to show you because it probably is going to get really gory and weird, but I did put it on my blog post, so you can just check that out below. I hope this was of informational to you if you didn't know anything about pacemakers or you just wanted to know my story. Thank you for watching, and thank you for those who read my blog post on it. Make sure to check out all my links below, and I will see you later.